This is Gregory Brown with RMUnicorn, the Ruby Mendicant University video log. Yesterday I talked about the 5 factors that I think are necessary for improving education. Today I would like to talk about one of those, decentralization. So I'd like to just sort of outline why that's so important and how we're implementing it in RMU. I think that one of the things that education suffers from is that when you deal with any relatively large organization, whether it's public or private, is that it encounters sort of the similar problems that we see in software that's designed by committee, which means that what happens is a lot of compromises are made and everybody sort of has an idea of how they would like to do things, but in order to work together, these people with these vastly different ideas of how to teach and how to effectively train people have to come to a compromise. And unfortunately, that compromise leaves the resulting material in a state in which it's just tolerable by everyone and really loved by no one. And I think that when you're dealing with any large organization, that's the problem that you run into. So in my mind, an educational system that's decentralized, that only compromises on the basic spirit of the goals rather than the specific implementations of them, would be far more effective. And this is why, actually, with RMU, I've been pretty hesitant to bring in a bunch of people who have been volunteering to help. I get people asking to help, a few times a week, and I would really, really love for them to be able to help out, but it would actually be hard because every new person that I add into the mix would make it so that it'll become harder and harder to just execute on the idea that I have for the program. And that's a tricky thing because once you decentralize, you don't get some of the benefits of having the resources that you would if you have a lot of people working together. So that's a challenge for us, one that I hope that we can find a way to find a balance for. I think what I'd really like to do is come up with some sort of parent organization that is dedicated towards the advancement of free education, and that organization could help with things like providing resources and promotional things and things like that, and that the basic premise there would be that anyone who was doing something that promoted these core ideas could get some help from that organization, but that they could actually run their own things. And I think that's something that really matters to me because I want RMU to sort of be its own thing, and if I do accept help from others, I want it to sort of come from the inside, internally, from the people who are actually associated with it. But decentralization is not just an organizational thing. It's also talking about how you might organize the courses themselves within the organization. And my idea for RMU has been developing over time. Initially, I always thought that it was just going to be something where it was a single course taught to the same sort of audience level, the same sort of target audience, and that's what it would be. And I would just do that again and again and again. But that's only because I didn't anticipate what a strong community that we would be building when we brought people in, and that even before their sessions they were doing things like setting up remote pair programming together and code review sessions, and that was actually where I first got the idea of, wow, well, if not all of this information needs to come from me, that people can just sort of start up their own little programs within the organization, run them, and that allows us to provide things for a lot of people's different interests and needs without it all having to come from me. So I took that spirit and applied it to the courses that we're teaching. I think that the core course that we're teaching is very important because it sets the tone for the organization, and it also makes sure that everybody has a certain baseline level of understanding before they move on to other things. But in 2011, we're going to be offering a bunch of alumni courses for the people who have taken the core course. And if I were to go the traditional route, I could make something that was sort of a linear progression where everybody takes particular courses in a particular order, and then group them somehow into some sort of certification or anything like that, but I really don't want to do that. So instead, I'm trying to offer lots of different but equally valuable paths that people can take, and they can jump around from course to course. So some of the courses that we plan to run are a free software clinic, where it's going to be a very small sectional course where there's going to be 5 students and me actually working on a free software project for a period of 6 weeks. One is called Industrial Strength Ruby. That will have, I think, 10 students, and it's going to be about using Ruby in the industry. The sort of things that I didn't really want to cover in the core course because they might be specialized a little bit too much, but just the sort of things that you might need to do if you are using Ruby in business, ranging from systems integration to building web services and things like that, and asynchronous job processing, that sort of thing. So right there, those are 2 like distinct topics, and there's no necessary reason why someone would have to take one and then the other, or even take both. So just making it sort of a flat structure seems appealing to me. We'll also possibly run some courses on object-oriented design and high-level system design, which I think is something that's interesting to some people, but not strictly necessary. And I think that's what I find about software education in general, that once you get past a certain point, the relevance of these different topics really depends on your level of interest in them and what you want to do. So even within our single organization, I want to make it so that these courses are not following a single serial path. I also, at some point or another, will authorize some people to teach under the RMU banner, so to speak, but that's some time away. I'm hoping to prepare some people for that by offering some technology education training courses as well, so people who have gotten alumni status in RMU can take that and sort of learn my style of teaching, and if it appeals to them, then they can teach for RMU. But if it doesn't appeal to them, then I think the right solution is for them to go off and make their own organizations. And I think that that's where I would like to see things go in general, which is that as much as I would really like to see people band together and help me bring RMU to a point where it's very stable and sustainable, I also want to respect the right to fork. There are already some people who are finding out that this way that I'm teaching RMU isn't for them, and that's something that is completely understandable. I mean, we've had really, really good success rate with the people who have come in because we tried to make sure we set the proper tone with the entrance exam, but there's some people who haven't quite gotten out of it what I would hope that they would. And what I really sincerely hope is that those people continue this path of learning and of teaching, but do it in the way that appeals to them. And this is something that is really unique about what we're doing here, in that, as opposed to a traditional organization that has a well-defined curriculum laid out and has it basically everybody working under the same banner and under the same rules, we have the opportunity and the option to stay small and say this is what we do and this is what we're good at and that's how we're going to do it, and people who want it can do it with us, people who want to do something else can do it somewhere else. But I guess the key takeaway here is that I've got 2 ideas that are really important to me. One is the advancement of free education in general, and the other is RMU. And I'm going to try really hard to decouple those 2 things, because RMU is a particular topical thing that has a very specific style and a very specific guidelines to it. And I want to keep that for RMU. I don't think that you necessarily should or need to teach other topics in this way. But the overall spirit of it is preserved in this free education movement idea that I have. And for that, I think we'll need another organization. And what we'll end up with is basically that organization is going to be supporting all sorts of different styles and types of education so long as they respect these ideas. But that if that organization does succeed, if I do create a good charity organization that's meant to support this sort of thing, it's most likely to invest in grassroots programs run by a particular individual who has a high degree of personal accountability and high visibility in the sort of work that they're doing. So if you really want to get involved in helping this movement forward and you want to do something that isn't exactly the same as what I'm doing, then all you need to do is get out there and start building up something underneath yourself to make your own organization. And then once we do get to the point where we can support everybody who has these sort of similar philosophical ideas, then it's likely that I'll support you. It's unlikely that I'll try to build a large institution here, because then it would sort of turn back into exactly what I'm trying to avoid. So I guess in that sense, the decentralization gives us two things. One, it lets a single person take full accountability for everything that's happening. And two, it preserves the right to fork, in a sense, which sort of ties in with a lot of the other stuff that is important, like the free availability. But at the same time, there's nothing saying that if a better program came out that was more suitable for Ruby learning than RMU, that there's nothing saying that it shouldn't exist. And I hope that people continue to do things in their own sort of creative way, and that as long as this program remains valuable, that it'll keep going. But that if there are other opportunities out there to do this sort of thing that are different than what I believe in, then I would want to be able to support them too, at least in a spiritual sense. So I guess that's it on decentralization. Tomorrow I'll talk a little bit about individualization, which is equally important. Thanks.